people to feel comfortable enough that when they come through a, challenge or a hurdle, they can call me or text me.
Wow.
That's my goal with the relationship, especially in my role right now. I love it when I get to that point in the relationships with the people that I work. It's like, let me just call Luis, see what he has to say.
Because they feel connected to you and you feel connected to them.
Yeah.
Wow, we would have never believed this. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Google. Go out there and listen to us. So we're excited about it. We're glad you're excited about it too.
All right, everyone. Today we have my boy, Luis. This is going to be fun because, we know each other from family.
Yes.
We know each other from family, which is good,
it's
right?
true.
Family is always, he's gone to our church too a bit.
That's where I got baptized.
Look at that. We were part of the same kin. But most importantly, we're in the same field.
Yes.
But not just because we're in education, but not necessarily are we in the same educational field, but we're both within the same realm within the field.
It's true.
We have dug into the mental health part of education, which is probably the toughest part about it right now.
Especially right now.
It is so tough. What I'm bringing everyone in, and I'm talking about all this because we're trying to do something here. And what I'm trying to do is we're trying to get a message onto people. We want people to improve. We want to maximize people's life, right? Not only do I want to provide strategies for people who are down and out, one step from losing everything, but I also want to provide strategies for those educators who are just like us, who are in the trenches, putting in work, and looking for ways to maximize my results.
Awesome.
Looking for those strategies, those one little pivot that can just save me so much stress.
Yeah.
And this is why I have my boy on, because what I did is I did like a mentoring series last time.
Okay.
And the mentoring series where we brought people on that have done the mentoring.
Got it.
It's like a case study.
Okay.
Of building credibility.
Nice.
Because, as well as I do, I don't want to listen to somebody that doesn't know.
You want practitioners.
I want practitioners, baby.
Don't just talk theory. Give me the practice.
I want you to talk to me about how you lived it.
Got it. Okay.
And how did you produce those results?
All right. You're priming me. Okay.
And that's what we want to provide for the audience.
Okay.
So today's episode, what we're going to get into, and I think this is one of my favorite topics, is time management.
Okay.
And productivity, right? You can't have one without the other.
Very true.
You need to have both components in order to really produce the way you want, in order to really meet those goals that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Right, my friend? So what are your thoughts?
So time management and productivity.
Yeah.
So the goal of both of those, I feel, are to be efficient. Now, let me kind of backtrack a little bit and say that, my default setting, I'm a homebody.
Okay.
I like enjoying my free time.
Okay.
I like just staycations. Like that's me, right? But in order for me to enjoy that, I need to be very productive in what I do to get that time, right? So I think everyone needs to kind of anchor their why, their purpose into like what they enjoy doing.
Dang.
Right? So for me,
I wasn't expecting you to start there.
So for me, like, I know that the way that I work, I need to be like very self-disciplined.
Yeah.
I'll give you an idea, like in terms of like when I'm on break, because we work for the school system, and there's times where we get to enjoy like winter break, right? Nice. Christmas break.
I love it.
And then I'll give myself all these things that I have to do, and if I don't have a routine, none of it gets done. You're laughing because you relate, right?
Oh, I know exactly what that's like.
So then I know that for myself, like I have to stick to a routine, right? Which in the school systems we call systems, right? So for me, like I have to make sure that if I'm gonna enjoy my life the best that I can, then I need to learn how to code switch and be very productive and very good at what I do and do it right the first time. So I'm not spending more time doing it, so I can get the time. I can use the time at the end of the day to what I enjoy to do. Brilliant. Which is being with my wife, with my family, going on vacations, like being like, yeah, let's go ahead and kind of,
It's everything.
Let's do it all, right? But that doesn't happen if you don't have good time management, you don't have productivity.
Dang.
Now, my default setting doesn't call for that.
No.
But I have to have the self-discipline to get there, right? And it's not something that was just, like a switch for me. Like it took time. It was really interesting because I was reflecting on this topic the last couple of days that we were talking. And I remember like in third grade when the timetables came into play, right? And then our teacher would always say like, hey, you need to study because like every morning we're going to do like a separate section of the times tables. And that's when I realized like the studying thing, it actually works. And I'm like, damn, like I studied and it actually gave me the results. So I remember that in third grade, it was my first time that I noticed like, okay, this really working with my brain and being very strategic, it actually pays off because now I can move on and do other things that I enjoy.
So if you invest your time, you produce the results you want.
Exactly.
Wow, man.
Right?
See, I already think that's a brilliant hook. Now let's lead into you.
Okay.
Let's lead into who you are and what your credibility is.
Okay.
Tell us about your journey.
So my journey. So I'll start off. I am the son of two immigrants.
Okay.
So they came here with the dream to have a better life, and eventually, as generation kind of passed by, to do better. So I feel like hopefully we made our parents proud, my siblings and I.
Yeah. I bet. I bet, bro.
Hey, everyone's gone through college, and if you think about it, going from like from Mexico to coming over here, and within the first generation, having everyone like go to college, really instilling those values of like, hey, hard work can get you, the desired outcomes that we want. That was something that my dad was really big on.
It's an American dream.
Yeah, it really is. He sacrificed for us because I'm sure he had to endure a lot to get to this point along with my mom. So for us to be able to return that in like, hey, it's because of you that we're having success, I'm sure that means a lot. So we have to like, pay homage to that, all those lessons that they gave us like early on. So that was kind of growing up, and I always saw them kind of like struggle. But they always kept in mind that we're doing this for your future. Yeah. They always kind of planted that seed. And I remember even we used to go to after school tutoring and stuff like that. And I remember this one time it was some type of newspaper interviewed my dad. And one of his quotes I still remember to this day is like, I want my sons to have an education so they don't have to work as hard as I did. Wow. With the manual labor, they could use their brain and other stuff like that. Yeah. So it's like, that really stuck to me because like I knew that they made sacrifices for me to move forward, and I wanted to push that forward through other generations. Right?
Dang.
So early on, I felt like this sense of like, okay, like I need to.
You gotta put in work. You gotta put in work.
My parents didn't sacrifice all of that for me to just kind of goof off, right? Yeah. So they were very strict with us early on. Like we were that family that, would go to outings, but we had to sit next to our parents. Like you can't go out and messing around, right? Yeah. We're not going to be disrespectful. So I kind of grew up like that, but it was a very lonely sort of journey as well, because by the time we got to high school, I felt that I never really felt like part of any clique. And I felt like, you're in your high school years, you want to go out, do whatever. And I'm like, nah, there's more at stake here. Right. So I felt very like lonely at first, like nobody really has the mentality, or very few do. Like, I'm not about that. Right.
Yeah.
But when I got into college and when I got into like, what we call like your first like real job, like it all kind of started making sense. Yeah. Right. So
your high school journey was lonely?
I feel like it was, man.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like I did well.
Yeah.
Like I had a number of friends. I was involved in a couple of things, but I've always felt like I didn't belong.
Wow.
Yeah, it was interesting,
I would
man.
Never have fit that with you because, and for you, you're just so focused on your studies. You're so focused on honestly following that American dream that the peers around you weren't there. So that almost kind of made you feel separated from them.
I feel like, so I was part of like AP classes and all of that.
Yeah.
And to some extent, I felt like I had this like self-imposed class ceiling on me. Whereas like my classmates were going to UCLA, USC, and my dad was like, no, you're staying home.
Oh.
You know, they never experienced that, right? So I felt like, man, who am I to be successful? Because where I come from, right? So there was a lot of self-imposed glass ceilings that I had to kind of tear down.
You were already
myself.
limiting yourself.
I was.
Based on where your parents came from.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was high school.
That was high school, man. That was high school.
Wow.
So as we look to the next generation, as you know, I'm going to be a father in
Ah,
about
dude, I'm
6
proud of
months.
you, man.
Countdown's
I'm proud of
going.
you, dude.
Thank you,
That's
thank
so
you.
exciting.
So like that's part of the stuff that really excites me is that my son, like, it's not gonna have that glass ceiling because, you know, mom and dad did it. You know, mom having the same background as I do. So each generation we're like progressing, and those glass ceilings get removed more and more.
And let me say how good. This is how good they are. Him and his wife. So me and my wife, she's a LCSW, and I'm a practitioner. When we started our practice, we contracted with him and his wife to train us and provide PD and make us and provide us the processes to be therapists, to be practitioners. That's how good my boy is and his wife. That's how much I looked up to them.
Yeah, that's my wife's work right there. I can't take credit for that. She, in terms of systems, I'm just supporting her and kind of cheering her on. And yeah, we do talk shop sometimes at home, but it's really kind of her work driving it through.
Wow, but that's exciting for you though to see that, you know, your glass ceiling. You know, you have people like me coming, getting training, like my wife coming, getting training from you and your wife. Yeah. And that's where your kid's walking into. So tell me about your college experiences.
So college experience. So I went to CSUB. I stayed locally.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Attaboy, baby.
Got to
Me
rep
too.
those Road
Me
Runners.
too.
Got my BA in psychology. I always knew that I wanted to be in the helping profession, just didn't really know like where, right? Because if you think about it, all we knew in the schools coming up were school counselors. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, let's just be honest, there was little counseling that actually took place.
More like scheduling.
More like scheduling, making sure you meet their A through G requirements, or if you had a complaint about something, you would go. And I'm sure back in the day we had less supports at the school, so that was probably all they had time to do, right? So I knew I wanted to help. I just didn't know in what field yet. Yeah. So I got my BA in school psychology, and then I remember I was going to go to work with children with autism. And then my supervisor at the time, I was working at a bank, she put me in contact with a local mental health clinic. And luckily for me, that was like the start of my career.
Wow.
Because this was the first time that Kern County Mental Health and the school system joined forces.
When was this?
This was in 2010.
Damn.
Yes, this was over 14 years ago now.
Yeah, they didn't have it in there yet.
The integration didn't happen.
It's not there, yeah.
You're seeing more of it now, especially because of the domino effect of COVID. But back then it was like,
we're building on your guys' shoulders.
It's what's happening right now is very similar to what we were doing, 10, 12 years ago.
Man, you're a pioneer, bro.
So in 2010, I was employed by the clinic, but I was stationed at a middle school. And I was providing what we call school-wide services, universal services. And we were doing small groups with students. And we also had a therapist on our team that was providing those individual services.
Man.
So if you think about it, what does that sound like? It sounds like the systems that are taking place right now. We were just doing it kind of back then.
Dude, hey, that is a full wraparound because that's what students need. Yeah. They need the groups, but they also need the individual. And you guys are already compiling that. So you were the one running the groups.
I was the one running the groups.
And this is as you're still having your bachelor's.
I'm still having my bachelor's, yeah.
And you're just grinding.
Yeah. I was out there doing intramurals, doing all the school-wide stuff, making myself visible.
Wow.
You know, breaking down some of that stigma around mental health. Like, hey, yeah, you can go talk to Mr. Garcia. He's cool. He's not going to be weird about it, you know? So being part of the mental health clinic, you know, I saw that there was two routes to become a therapist. Yeah. There's a marriage and family therapist. There's social work route. Decided to go back to the social work route. I met my wife in the program. I got a 2-for-1 deal.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that's where you guys met.
Yeah, we met in the program.
Man.
We were both working in different mental health clinics. Uh-huh. So we had to go back to school part-time. So we went back to school. Because it was part-time, a lot of us were like older. So there was only, very few of us that were like in our 20s.
Yeah.
She was one of them. I was one of them. Like, and it was really interesting. So I'll tell you this. Our prayer in grad school was like, hey, God, if this is the one for me, like, let your will be done, not mine. We didn't want to force it or anything.
Wow.
And it wasn't until months later that we talked about that, like, hey, I had the same prayer. Yeah, it was risky, man. I asked her out, and if she said no or something went wrong, I was going to be stuck with her for 3 years. We're a cohort.
Bro.
Yeah, but
hey, that's a risk right there.
It's a risk. I took it. It paid off, man.
Thank God.
It paid off. Yeah.
Hey, it was worth the risk. Take risks.
There you go. Yes.
Scary ones, too. Jump into that.
Yeah. So we went back to school. We got our master's in social work in 2015. We got our credential right afterwards to become school social workers.
Right on.
And then the very next year, that's when the schools finally started to hire school social workers in 2016. So I felt like we were, to some degree, like God knew what he was doing.
God knew what he was doing.
Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a divine plan.
Yes. He prepared us for it. He got us ready. And it's like, here you go.
Wow.
And like ever since then, we've been in the schools carrying some of the work. And I want to say there's about 100 plus school social workers in the school right now.
Bro, you guys are the pioneers.
We were there from the beginning. I would tell
Even
you that.
especially Carla too.
Yes.
She's the pioneer in BCSD, establishing the processes. So you came from an immigrant family, feeling like you don't belong in high school just because of all the different variables, to where you're at, to graduating, right, with your master's in social work, and then working with students, right?
Working with those same students that probably feel like they don't belong for the separate reasons.
Exactly that, man. With the same feelings that you had, and teaching them how to process those feelings, teaching them that they do belong, and teaching them those skills. If you don't have those skills to belong, teaching them those skills so that they can have those interactions that they want, and connecting.
Yeah, and that's one side of it, because we also work with the staff and the parents to make sure they're able to support this student, this child.
Oh, it's vital.
To no matter where they're at, they're feeling that support so they could all reach their full potential. Everyone has potential, right? It's just that sometimes something's in the way. But through the relationship, that's when the healing takes place. But sometimes we're, plagued with our own, let's call it negative patterns or negative ways of thinking, that it gets in the way for the healing. So kind of being able to remove those, and with scientific, therapy or professional development, adaptive changes, we can kind of get through some of those barriers.
Wow. Doing that in the schools is not easy. Doing that in life is not easy. And it takes a lot of different skills and strategies in order to get it done. What are the strategies that you used for your time management in order to get you through that success? Because in order to connect with all the parents, in order to connect with the staff, in order to keep moving forward, in order to push those systems and processes, in order to get those tier 1 and tier 2s in place, what are the strategies that you needed in order to keep that production rate?
Yeah, you know what? There was a point when I was working as a coordinator at one of our local school districts where we used to take in interns. So we had to kind of teach them, like, hey, how do you do this? The best way that I could explain to them is like, you just have to learn how to shift gears. How you have a conversation with a kindergarten student versus a parent versus administrator versus a teacher versus an 8th grade student, it's all going to be very different. So how do you make yourself relatable, right? How do you connect with them through their strengths?
Wow.
How do you make sure that they know that you care about them? Because it's always going to be grounded on the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Even for therapy, relationship is 70% of the work.
Yeah.
Like once your client knows that you're there for them and you have unconditional positive regard, which means that like, hey, I got you.
You love them in the moment.
Love them in the moment.
For who they are.
That's half the work.
Wow.
Right. The rest is just your intervention. And then your intervention has to be backed by evidence-based. You can't just like, well, this feels right, I'm going to say this.
I'm going to wing it.
Right. No. There's theories to follow. And you just have to be as linear as you can with it, knowing that working with human beings is not going to be linear, but you're going to be there for them if they trip up or whatever happens to them.
That's not hard. That's not easy.
It's not.
How do you get the time to do it?
So for me, I always took every case very seriously, in the sense that like, okay, I remember my first clinical supervisor kind of taught me this early on, where I was interning as a therapist, and I was having difficulty writing my therapy note, and she kind of sat me down. Shout out to Karen. She kind of sat me down and said like, Louis, you're too stuck on doing therapy. Just talk to them. Just connect with them. And then we'll figure out the note afterwards, right? So I never forget about that, humanizing the work.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what's going to connect us, right? Because we're super busy in what we do. You know this in the schools.
Oh, yeah.
But you can't rush through it. You can't just say like, hey, I got to do this or we got to move. That's not going to get the job done. So that's something that I never forgot, right? So it may take more time up front to build that relationship, but the outcomes are going to be a lot better in the long run. And I have to understand that because in the schools, there is a lot of pressure of like, hey, work with this kid or work with this family because they're not doing what we want them to do. So I need you to work with them quick. But you have to stand on your processes.
Yes.
So it's kind of like you have to know like, hey, this is going to take time. I'm going to follow my process. I'm going to engage. I'm going to assess. I'm going to provide psychoeducation. I'm going to intervene. Then I'm going to evaluate to make sure it's working.
So essentially what you're saying is one of the best ways time management is put the upfront work in.
Yes.
Put all that upfront work in. And the main upfront work that we have to do, especially, I would say this is going to carry over with your family. Mm-hmm. This is going to carry over if you want to be volunteering at church, if you want to be a leader of a Bible study, if you're running business. The best upfront work that anyone can do is investing in the relationships of others.
Yep. One of my favorite quotes around this work is by Dr. Jeff Duncan. And he says, we're so consumed by outcomes that we lost track of process.
Wow.
Right. We want X, Y, or Z to take place. But in doing that, we dehumanize the work.
Yeah.
Because we just want to see these numbers, these behaviors take place. It's like, no, you can't do that. You have to stick to your process. And in that, the outcomes will come. And that's for everything.
And see, now you're taking us to a different subject. You got to have relationship within your process. That needs to begin the beginning, right? Especially if you're working with people, especially if you're working with others, you have to have that relationship as a main component. But then the second part that we have to have, especially when it comes to time management, especially if you want to be a top producer or even just produce what you need to do, you have to have a process.
Yeah.
What's your processes?
So systems are a big thing in the school system, right? My process, like, it's very interesting. Like, I was reflecting on this as well. And I want to say for any communication via email or text, like, I always try to show my humanity. Like, I try to be, like, funny or whatever, because I know that it's relationship that moves the work.
Yeah.
Right. And oftentimes, if I'm working with someone and I know they're, like, guarded, like, I'll show my vulnerability. I humanize myself as much as I can to move the work.
So part of your process is being very transparent.
Yeah.
As enough, especially with others, so that you can drop their guards down.
Yeah. A lot of people, because it's kind of, I see it like this. Yes, I'm a therapist. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I know all this clinical jargon, but that's not going to get the job done for me. I have to be able to break it down and make it relatable to the person in front of me. And that person in front of me can have a variance of, they could be a site administrator, they could be a teacher, they could be a kindergarten student, they could be an 8th grade student. I just have to be able to switch those gears to get myself to be able to connect with them.
So that's where you're talking about switching gears with the conversation. You're switching gears in the conversations because you need to build that relationship. Yes. And part of building that relationship is everyone is a different individual. So you got to show different parts of yourself and that transparency.
Yeah.
And that vulnerability.
Exactly.
And through that's the connection, huh?
Right, exactly. Now, even within that process, there's techniques, motivational interviewing, right? Are you using open-ended questions? Are you using summaries, right? Are you affirming the emotions that you hear in the conversation with the other? There's strategies to this to make sure that connection is built.
I this is what's the best part about what we're talking about. Unconditional positive regard, which is loving somebody for who they are in the moment.
Right.
How biblical is that?
Right.
Right? Isn't that straight? That's what Jesus talks about. In order to really get through to people, you got to love them for who you are in that moment. But then when you do, guess what happens? The heart melts.
Yes.
Right? These strategies they're interesting because they're multidisciplinary, but then also you could take the track record back and you see that these strategies have been working for thousands of years. And it's these processes that people use in order to get through to people.
The truth works.
The truth works.
Yeah.
And the truth is just being real.
Yeah.
right?
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
I don't want to pull this clinical term out or do this. It's just really about being real with others.
Yeah. I want people to feel comfortable enough that when they come through a, challenge or a hurdle, they can call me or text me.
Wow.
That's my goal with the relationship, especially in my role right now. I love it when I get to that point in the relationships with the people that I work. It's like, you know what, let me just call Luis, see what he has to say.
Because you just they feel connected to you and you feel connected to them.
Yeah. And who benefits in that? The staff that they're working with, the students that they're serving. So like, it's just a ripple effect.
And it's a ripple effect from everyone.
Yep.
And then you're just that person that's coming and just throwing that rock.
Yeah.
And getting that.
Yeah. Little ripples.
But we don't talk about that. We don't really realize that if we really want to save time, right? Because that's the thing. See, and this is the thing is we're saving time. Why? Because we really want to get and spend time with those meaningful things.
Yes. So one of the ways that we look at it in therapy is like when you first meet someone, and this could be like individually or even if I'm having some type of consultation, they're going to feed you what we call M&Ms, sugar-coated statements. It's not the truth, right? But once we could get to the point where we can be real with one another, then we get to the things that we need to talk about, but you're not going to open up or bring your defenses down to someone that you can't relate to, right? So that's when your listening skills really kind of come in. And, especially with our educators right now, they're going through a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So being able to validate and empathize with their struggles, because we've been there, like, although I'm removed, I understand what it's like. Yeah. So I'm leaning on that experience to help me relate as well. And then we can start talking about moving the work. So then now, one of the things that I oftentimes think about, and I get this from Dr. Cherie Walker, is kind of like, what are people going to experience you when they have an interaction with you? Right. So I think about that as well. When I'm interacting with people, I want them to feel some type of worth coming from me, that they care, that I care about them, and that they know that they can use me as a resource. So whenever I get those text messages or emails back, it's kind of like, okay, cool. They're experiencing what I want them to experience from me.
I love this because, I work with a lot of students. I'm always training them. And I tell them the way you build relationships is just layers of interactions. Every interaction is an opportunity. Every opportunity is an opportunity, or every interaction is an experience, and every experience is an opportunity to build more, to stack. And it's just quick conversations. As long as you feel connected and you have something real, boom, all of a sudden you're just filling up that bond.
It goes back to working in the schools. One of the things that we teach our interns is like, when you come into school, always go to the front office. Make sure you say hi to the secretary, to all the clerks, because they run the school to some extent.
You got to do that.
Be nice to the custodian, to the janitor, because they can hook you up with stuff when you need it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And be nice to everyone. Every interaction counts. Don't look at it as like, I have so much to do. I just need to get from point A, the parking lot, to point B, my office. There's so much work that happens throughout that. Every interaction counts.
Luis, you're just hitting on so many points. You're teaching me so much. No, you are, because this is why. I have to get a lot of work done.
Yeah.
You know how I get most of my work done? Through all the relationships.
Exactly.
I have so much to do. Sometimes my to-do list is way more than I can look at. And even if I don't have it written down, I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Once I write it down, okay, I'm good. But the way I get most of that work done is because I've spent so much time investing in the relationships. It's just a phone call.
Yep.
I already know I'm going to solve this big old problem. I'll make a phone call because I got the relationship.
I love that. Yeah. And I mean, there's people in my contacts that I can just text something. They're like, hey, I got you.
Or you could text me.
Exactly.
Right off the bat, bro.
I'm here because of that.
Yeah, I could just text you, and all of a sudden we can get more work done than ever before because we're invested.
And especially if your why and your purpose is in alignment.
Yeah.
If people see that you're here to do the right work, right, to make sure that you're in service of everyone, whether it be the staff or the students, people appreciate that. And once you kind of show that through your work, they're willing to help you with that. So again, connecting with people and their beliefs, that moves the work forward.
Is being honest and real too. See, you can't be a maximum producer. And you can't really focus on your time if you can't being real, because really the biggest time saver is investing in relationships.
Yeah.
And you can't, because and this is one thing I can see, even little kids, like little 6-year-old, they can tell when people are BSing.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%.
They can tell when somebody's not really invested in it.
Yep.
And if they're not, my Lord, they're going to spend 2 hours with that kid just fighting him.
It's very true.
Opposed to me and you, the kid sees we're invested. It's just, come here.
Yeah.
So instead of spending 2 hours working with somebody, it's just, come on, man.
And that's kind of one of the things that we gather from therapy, right? It's like you can't drag or pull your client. You have to walk alongside with them, you know, and then relationships are the same way. You know, when I get into a new campus, I make sure to greet everyone. Brilliant. You know, hey, good morning. How are you doing? Have a good
is that
day.
Easy?
It's difficult because it's not my norm, but I know I'm there to do work.
So you push yourself to greet people.
I push myself to greet people because sometimes it feels bad not getting greetings back.
Yeah.
But then the next time I go, I'm like, hey, what's so-and-so's name? So then I greet them by name, right? And then they kind of feel like the sense of like, oh, they know my name.
Because you don't feel like greeting every time, huh?
Right, right.
Some days you're just like, man, I just want to walk in. I'm barely making it.
Right.
But you have to do that.
Right. It's part of the work. See, oftentimes people see like relationship building, like if I have time for it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, no. That should be foundational. You build relationships and then you can start actually doing your work.
Because that's how you save time.
That's how you save time.
Bro, you just blew my mind.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's in the field of education, but it's also everywhere.
It's multidisciplinary.
It's multidisciplinary. It's universal
because there's
truth.
Humans everywhere.
Yep.
The more you invest into people, the more real you are, the more transparent you are, the more you make those interactions meaningful. That's your process.
Right.
The faster you will get things done when the opportunity is there, because all you got to do is just, hey,
efficiency.
Hello.
You talk about time management, you talk about being productive, relationships will get you there faster in a more efficient way.
Wow. So relationships, we're going to end it here. Relationships are the most efficient and optimal way of living. And as long as your core values and your purpose are lined up with your why, not only will you be producing maximum results, but you're going to really love life while you're doing it.
And don't be afraid to be human, even in a professional setting. Like, don't be afraid to be human, to let them know that you're feeling in some type of way, because that connects people to you. Like last Friday, we were doing like a all-day professional development. I let them know, like, hey, we're coming back from winter break. We had a Martin Luther King holiday. That's 5 days work in 4 days. And you're here on Friday, so that's really 5 days work in 3 days. Like, I'm feeling it just like you guys. Everyone's like, okay, he understands. And now we can move forward. You know, when you validate what people are feeling and you connect with them, then you can enter into a logical conversation with them, which is where most of the work takes place.
Dude, fantastic.
Yeah.
Everyone, you got to watch this. You got to listen to this, but you got to execute this. It's not about just getting through life. It's really about maximizing what you have in life. And the only way, the best way, the way Jesus describes is investing and loving others.
It's true. Very true.
All right, everyone. Peace with some